Through you, Mr. Speaker, I'm looking at lines 29 through 34, which indicate that on January 1st, 2024, and not later than each January 1st thereafter, the minimum fair wage shall be adjusted by the percentage, and it carries on. Does this indicate that the minimum wage can be adjusted more than once a year? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Porter.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, no.
Representative Cummings.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, so just to confirm, the only time that the minimum wage can be adjusted each year is on that October 15th date that is set forth on line 26. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Porter.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, yes.
And Representative Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And through you, if the index does drop, does that require an automatic drop in the minimum wage if the minimum wage has reached over that $15 an hour bare minimum? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Porter.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, can you please have her ask the question again?
Representative Cummings, would you care to?
Through you, Mr. Speaker, if the index does drop, will the minimum wage follow suit and automatically be reduced so long as it does not reduce past the $15? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To my understanding, it will not decrease if it drops. Through you.
Representative Cummings.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, so the only time that it's following the index is when there's an increase. Is that correct? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Porter.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, for the last time on this question, that is correct.
Representative Cummings.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, I do appreciate her generosity in answering my first questions of the day. And on lines 58 through 67, it indicates that after 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, there is reporting to be made to the General Assembly about reducing the minimum wage. Must the General Assembly take up those recommendations? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Porter, to care to respond.
Yes. Through you, Mr. Speaker. Would she please repeat the question? Through you.
Representative Cummings, would you care to repeat your question?
I sure would, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. On lines 58 through 67, it sets forth the process by which, if there are 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, there is reporting that goes through to the General Assembly to take action on the recommendations. Must the General Assembly take actions on those recommendations, or will they be automatically implemented without any action taken by the General Assembly? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Porter.
Through you, Mr. Speaker. I can't count the number of times that I've answered that question last night, this morning. It is on the record. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Cummings.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, if she wouldn't mind putting it on the record one more time so that I can make sure that I understand the question, the answer to the question that I have proposed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Porter, do you care to respond further?
Through you, Mr. Speaker, I do mind. Through you.
Representative Cummings, you have the floor.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, I am definitely disappointed that the proponent of the bill refuses to answer my question when this is my first time speaking on this bill after being here all night long. This bill directly impacts our small businesses. I've spoken to small businesses in my community wherein these $15 an hour is going to cost them $234,000 a year upon full implementation. And to simply refuse to answer the question because she no longer feels like it is rude and a slap in the face to those in our communities who are employing these people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.